Yes, I can see.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, great. Good morning and good evening, folks. Thank you for joining this session. Thank you for staying with me for the second session, I would say. I'm Sudip Chakrovorty, and today I'll be talking about portals for Dynamics 365, which is an out-of-box portal solution provided by Microsoft. And because the portal for Dynamics 365 is a big topic, so we thought to cover it in 2 sessions, but looks like we have to do the 3rd session now. And today's session is totally focused on the portal configuration, not the customization. And towards the end of the session, we will have a few minutes to answer any questions if you have. And if I cannot answer any query right away, then I will work on it offline and provide the answer. So before I start, a brief introduction about me. I have 15 years of progressive experience in entire SDLC using Microsoft technologies and close to 11 years of Dynamics focused experience. I have worked on different versions of CRM, like 4.0 to right now in 365 CRM. So today's agenda, that is in our second session, basically we are going to talk about the portal architecture, configuration overview, and the basics of portal. And there will be a demonstration about the customer self-service, because that is what I discussed in my last session, that we are going to work on this customer self-service product that we have installed from our previous session. And in the end, we have a last, if we have any questions. So a quick recap from our last session. So from folks who could not join our last session, so you can visit the YouTube link, which is here, and you can watch the video for the first session. But a quick recap, that what we talked about from our first session is basically we talked about what is portal, what is the capability, types of portal, features of portal, provisioning, and administrating a portal. So few fundamentals to brush up. So few things is like, Dynamics 365 is provides your audience an online location to communicate and collaborate with your Dynamics 365 engagement environment. And as we know that a user to view CRM data or manipulating CRM data, the user must be a licensed user, whether it is a full customer engagement license or a simple team license. They need to have a license. But this 365, it provides an entrance or gateway to a non-licensed Dynamics 365 users, and they can go through the portal and view, add, edit, delete, depending on their privilege. They can work on the Dynamics 365 data. Few fundamental points are basically, first is each portal is tied to a single instance of Dynamics 365, and this can be changed, but it must remain on the same tenant. You should choose your portal template carefully. Like there are a couple of templates, customer self-service portal, and a few more. And once you selected the template and configured a portal, it is not hard. I mean, it is not impossible to switch to another template, but it is not recommended. And it is pretty complex too, and there could be some data loss likely to occur. And each portal includes entitlement up to 1 million page views each month, and I believe additional capacity is like 500,000 per increment for $50 or $500, something like that. And by default, portals are cloud service, and customers are recommended to enable Azure storage. Microsoft has released source code back in 2017, I believe, where that is one-time release for the on-premise portal deployment. But basically they have officially basically it is now officially not supported by Microsoft. And so in our last session, this is where we left off, where we basically provision the portal, and this is how the vanilla portal looks like in when we when we finished our session. So so before we go into the CRM piece of the portal, or how the portal is, how the CRM data is surfaced through the portal. So let's talk about a little bit about the portal architecture. So so the best way to explain is basically if I give you an example, I believe. So first is, as we already know that each portal web page is connected to only one single instance of Dynamics 365. But if you have more than one portal, then you can have to buy add-on subscription. Then multiple apps can be connected to the multiple portals can be connected to the same portal architecture. Sorry. So basically, let's say that, for an example, from our last example, let's say the Unilink, which is the company who has one CRM instance, and basically it has a single instance of Dynamics 365, and they have only one customer self-service portal. So if you see this, a user, now there is an option in portal that where you can basically define your custom domain. So for example, let's say if you see this diagram, so let's say the URL is www.unilink.com. So that is our custom domain, and a user visits that website, and then they basically clicks on the product link, which will basically redirect to the portal that is hosted in Azure. So let's say they click on the product. So what is going to happen is basically, first, the browser is going to discover the address of the server. So for example, it is www.unilink.com, and then it is going to send the request to check the domain name, and it passes to the portal web app handling that domain. Then server connects to the Dynamics 365 instance and find the website binding, which you can see on the second slide here, website binding slide. And then then it's basically is going to correspond to the next website, I mean whatever it is bind to, which is basically Unilink self-service portal that we have built. And from there, it is basically going to pick up the web pages that is basically we have developed those pages for that particular website. So that is how the web page is retrieved when a user is basically visiting unilink.com/product. And the records, so these are the records are used to build the output, and then the output is sent to the visitor. So that is how the portal architecture works. And so let's talk about the configuration of the Dynamics 365 when we first install the portal solution. So some basics of the portal of the Dynamics 365. So once the portal solution is installed in Dynamics 365 instance, it can be available in the portal area. So when you navigate to the portals, you can see the website content and security and other things that comes with the template that we have installed. And today we are going to focus on the website content and security, and there are many I would say topics, or looking into the solution, we can see there are a lot of things that is self-explanatory, but we are not going to talk all of them, but there are a couple of important topics that I would like to explain. Because I work on custom portal implementations, and when looking at the portal entities in Dynamics, A lot of them are just self-explanatory, and I can relate to some of the techniques or solution that are implemented in Dynamics portals. So for example, we know what is redirects are, what is site settings are, what invitations are, like ads, polls, and poll placements. So by looking at them, you will get a pretty good idea what they are for, and you can have a quick read and you will have a pretty good idea about that. But however, there are few which is really complex and confusing. And for example, we will start with the first core entity, which is the core entity of the Dynamics portal, which is basically the website. So I'm going to explain website, web pages, which web templates, page templates, web forms, entity list, and web files, because I think they are pretty complex and important at this point of time. So, so the first thing is website, and websites are basically nothing. They are basically a primary area where you can see the installed site details and the domain information. So let me go back to my CRM and I can show you over there. So you navigate to the portals, and from the portals you go to the website. And because I have installed customer self-service template for the portal, so I see one record here. So the templates that you install, those will be shown here. So that's how I say that there will be one portal in this single instance that I have. Now, looking into this, if I click on this, you will see the details of the website. So basically, it says that what language it is, and if there is a primary domain name, what is the primary domain name, and if you want to have a parent website, and what are the header and footers for this particular website. So those are basically templates, the headers and footers, and it can be set in the form. And basically, this is all about the website metadata, and it contains all the required information about the deployed portal, such as the permissions, page definitions, site settings, and publishing states. Means that this portal can be timed, when it can be available to select. And and this entity is very important. And when I say entity, basically this record is very important. And why I'm saying that, if you accidentally delete this record, then means you are basically deleting the website record, and the portal entities related to the website, like web pages, web files, events, forums we have that comes with customer self-service, will be also deleted. And this is the desired behavior, by the way. It means that the entire website and all the related data can be removed from the CRM organization in a single operation. So that is a desired behavior. So you have to be very careful when you are working around this area, that that it should not get deleted. And let me go back to my slide again. So the next topic I want to talk about is page template. So the page template are basically, if you guys have worked on any .NET web development, so there are ASPX pages. So page templates are basically nothing. They are actual ASPX pages, which provides a mean to consistent look and feel throughout the website. And then we have the entity forms. Entity forms, we are going to see in detail what is the entity form and list. Today's session we will be working on entity forms and entity list, but from a definition point of view, entity form is basically a data-driven configuration to allow end user to have the ability to add a form to collect data from the portal without having a need of a developer to create a form, developer form for the portal. So basically, you can, just like the way we design the forms in Dynamics 365. For example, when you create, we have multiple. For an account entity, you can have multiple forms, and you can design one form, or you can have design multiple forms. So that the same way we can design the form that will be surfaced on the portal. So that is what is entity form is. And entity forms are created in the Dynamics 365, and then it can be placed into the web pages in the portal, or it can be used in the subgrids, and in conjunction with subgrids and with the entity list. So the next thing is entity list. Entity list is basically nothing. It's the view that that whenever you go to an entity, you can see that there is a. For example, if you go to the case, you can see active cases, closed cases, all cases. That kind of views are there. So entity list is the same thing. It gives you a view which is surfaced on the portal, so that user can see the records from that entity, and if they have multiple records, they can see in that view. So that is entity list. And then I'm going to talk about the web pages. So a web page is basically nothing. It's a particular URL. For example, www.unilink.com. So that's a particular URL. So web pages represents a particular URL in Dynamics 365 portal website, and it is one of the core entity, I would say, for Dynamics 365 portals. From a CMS point of view, from a content management system point of view, I would say. Through parent and child relationship to other web pages, this entity forms the hierarchy of the website. We will see that when we will do the demo. So I will come back and explain that, what is web pages and how the hierarchy of a website, or basically it's a sitemap, you can say. And then we're going to then I want to talk about the web templates. So web template is a Dynamics 365 entity, which includes with Dynamics 365 portals, which is stored, which is used to store the template source content. And web template will generally contain liquid for Dynamics content rendering. So basically, we are talking about the liquid HTML, and these are basically liquid templates with the rest of the Dynamics 365 portal system. And let's talk about security. There are a couple of there are two of them which I think very important, or three of them. I would explain those. One is basically entity permissions, and second one is web role, and third one is website access permissions. So entity permissions is basically, it is record based permissions, and it provides a scope of permissions on that particular data. So for example, accounts data, or leads data, or case data. And basically the scope is depending on the permission scope is basically is actually a child record of the parent entity's permission. Then we have web roles. Web role is basically once a contact, it is more towards the portal user, and if you have a user who wants to access the portal, they have to be the way it is designed, it has to be contact in a CRM, and that is where the web roles comes in, where once a contact has been configured to use the portal, it must be given one or more web roles in order to perform any special actions or access any protected content on the portal. So for example, in order to access a restricted page, the contact must be assigned to the role which read that page, which can be read by that by that portal user, because the web role is assigned. And then website, then there is another one which is important, which is website access permissions. Website access permission is basically a permission set. It's with the multiple privileges. That's why I call it a permission set. And it is associated with a particular web role, which means which permits front-side editing for various content managed element within the portal, other than just web pages. And permission settings determine which component can be managed in the portal. So that is the basics of the portals, and there are so many, but I think those are the important topics, and we are going to talk about those terminology throughout this session, so that's why I thought to explain those. So people ask a lot about, sometimes I get that question from a lot of people, that what is a web page versus template. I would say it is, so basically the best way to understand is that your web page is exact URL and page template is ASPX page, which acts as a blueprint for displaying the content. And each web page represents a specific URL in your site, in your website, which users can navigate to. And when a user navigates to a URL, the content associated with that URL is displayed. However, a web page contains no information. The page templates basically is a placeholder where all the contents are kept, and those will be displayed and called by the web pages. And so let's look into the next slide. So we talked about the entities. Now let's talk about the security when we install the portal. So a couple of security model basics. First is basically portal user is nothing but a contact record, and an authenticated portal user is associated with the Dynamics contact record, or it could be a system user. And to log in, a user must have an appropriate web authentication information configured. For example, whether it is a contact based, or there are a couple of other ways to authenticate. For example, we have Azure AD authentication, and then we have external authentication. But most of the time, it is contact based, means local authentication that we say. And then, of course, once we have that configured, then it is a roles. So in Dynamics 365 user role-based user security permission control that controls the types of records that each user can access. So for portal users, we basically need a web role, and that web role basically gives them the ability to gain access permission, and different roles can be configured to have access levels on portal pages. So for example, when you are basically having the employee self-service portal, even those and from that point of view also, even the employees are part of Dynamics users. They are basically nothing, they are contact records, even they are users in Dynamics 365. So that is how the security is controlled for the portal user. It has to be a contact record. And how the contents are basically securely displayed on the portal is basically that those are defined by the web page access control rules that we just talked about, the access web page access and web roles. And the data is basically so the data of that of the Dynamics data is basically securely displayed on the web page is basically done by the entity permissions and the web roles. And so in this slide, I just wanted to I would just wanted to explain what happens when a authenticated user logs into the portal. So a user is authenticated user. He comes into the portal, he signs in. So Dynamics, basically it is, then the portal is basically talks to the Dynamics CRM, I mean 365 instance. And then it checks if that user is a contact or not in the CRM system. If it is, then it is going to check what kind of web role this user has. And from that web role, it checks what are the entity permission this user has. And that entity permission basically, and as we talked about those, that the form, we have entity form, which is basically those surfaced. Those forms are kept in Dynamics 365, but those are surfaced on the portal. So depending on the entity permission, the forms and the list will be surfaced on the portal page. So that is how the portal security works from a user permission point of view. And those are governed by multiple entities. You see that we have a contact entity, then we have the web role entity, then we have entity permission, and then we have entity forms and entity list. So these are governed by multiple entities. So I just want to reiterate on the web role and entity permission, because these are we are going to see this in our demonstration. So web role is basically as soon as the contact has been configured to use the portal, we have to provide one or more web roles to perform any special actions or access any protected content on the portal. So to explain this, what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to create a contact, and I'm going to switch the roles so that I can show you that even one user, we can basically enable, disable the role, and then you see the effect on the web page when we do that. And second thing is entity permission. So basically entity permission is entity permission. So let me explain in this way. So it means that when user will access any entity from the portal, so let's say we have case entity, and that portal entity permission will be applicable on that user. So if that current user have a web role which contains the case entity permission, he will be accessed it, otherwise he would not. So for example, if you have a web role which does not contain any entity permission for case entity, and while creating entity form, you have selected enable entity permission. Now, when the user will try to create a record from the portal for the case, he will get an error saying that you don't have the permission. So that is what it means from enable entity permissions. And okay, so this time I'm going to demo the customer self-service portal. And before that, these are the things that I'm going to explain. So, so to surface the CRM data, these are the main entities that we most of the time we work around. So the entity forms is basically nothing. It renders an entity from CRM on the portal website without the use of any custom code, and basically and to expose the entity forms from Dynamics 365 on a portal website to grant portal users the ability to create, edit, and view CRM records. And there is out of the box contacts forms. Whenever you deploy a customer self-service, there is a contact us form is already built in, and that basically generates the leads or a form that allows users to create, edit, support cases from those. And then we have the entity list, and entity list is basically render an entity view. It renders the view from the CRM on a portal website without any use of code or any custom code. And web forms is basically rendering the web forms with the multiple steps and branching logic on a portal website. So for example, you have next kind of thing. So that is where the web forms comes in handy. And we are going to talk about the entity form and entity list on this demo. So having said that, let me go back to my CRM. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically create two contacts, or I would rather have a contact. Let me see what contacts I have. Okay, so I have two contacts. Let me see what access web role this guy has. So okay, so before we start that, so we have multiple forms for the contact, but if you want to give an access to this contact so that it can be authenticated user for the portal, you have to go to the portal contact form, and that basically installs that forms is installed, or have by the template that we have installed from customer self-service. That is how it is here. And so as you see, there is a web role, and you can assign multiple web roles to a user. Right now I have only 3 of them, which is administrator, anonymous, and authenticated user. So let me switch this person to administrator, this contact, and let me get rid of this one. Okay, and let me save this. So we have one user, which is administrator, and let me create another user, which will be a simple authenticated user of the portal. Let me assign. Okay, so before we do that, there are few ways to register a portal user. Let me go in here. A user can basically register themselves, or they can redeem an invitation. So for this one, I wanted to go back and show you how you can create a contact in your CRM and basically send an invitation code to that contact, to that user, to that contact, so that he can become a portal user. For that, I'll go back to CRM. And what we have to do is basically create. So this is a contact in the CRM right now. It is not assigned any role, so this user cannot really go into portal and access the portals. So if you see, there is no username and password. Username and password username is assigned to this contact. So let me create an invitation so that this person will receive an invitation and become a portal user. So as soon as the record is saved, you will see there is an invitation code here, and you can assign a web role. And let me assign a authenticated user, and you can email this code, or you can have a workflow or something that can pick up the invitation code and send to this user's email ID. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to copy this invitation code, and I'm going to redeem it here. So once the user receives the invitation code, then that user can go to this particular area and put his invitation code and register. All right, and let me see what is the email address. I believe that is the email address we have for this user. Let's see. one more time. Yeah, okay. So it picks up the email address, and this is autofill, so let's not worry about that. So let's 2011. Let me create a password. What? Okay, it is waiting. So as soon as a user use the redeem code, it basically gives a profile where they can create their own profile. For the time being, I just keep it as it is. And now let's see what this user can do, because this is an authenticated user now. So this user can go and create a case from here. And you see, this is basically the view that we have in the entity list. So this is the view that is surfaced from the CRM, and they can create a case from here. And this is basically the entity form, and this is where we are basically, this form is surfaced from the CRM. So let me create a case. And this suggested topic is coming from the knowledge base or the articles that is in the CRM that your CRM has. So this is giving the suggested topic so that it helps the customer, that if there is the same question has been asked before, then it gives you the ability to look into those, and so that it can resolve the it can help you to resolve the case without even creating the help you to resolve the issue without creating a case. And so let's say problem, and the subject is the default subject. Let's see, I have an issue. And if you want to attach a file, you can attach a file, and that's notes of the case record. It will create a notes in the case entity. Let me submit this, and then we'll go back to CRM and we'll check. So as soon as the user created the case, he can see and view the case. So there are two forms. One is for the create and one for the edit. So this is the edit form that we have, which is also surfaced from the CRM. And they can add a comment to it, so that it will be visible to the customer service agent who is working on it. And these are buttons which also can be configured from the case entity. When we are basically creating the entity form, we can also have a couple of more buttons, like resolve case or something like that. So that is also customized, and that is also configurable. And let me go back and show you how, if it is in the CRM or not. So when we go back to so this is the case that has been created from the portal. And now let me show you the another user that I want to make that user administrator. So just wanted to check if it is administrator or not, and I will show you how it looks. Yeah. Okay. Let me sign out and sign back. I must have forgotten the username password, so I have to pick it up. Yeah, okay. So as soon as I log in as a administrator, you will see I have special permissions now. I can basically customize the portal. So portal means the customize the web pages and other things. So for example, if I want to edit the navigation, I can do it. So this is the beauty of the CMS. When I talked about the content management system and the permissions that we talked about, these are the special permission that is given to the this particular role, and this user can basically change the elements of the website without I mean from the UI. And there is a new editor also comes in, and like here, and that is still that is very powerful, but that is still not, there are so many features that are not still incorporated on that new editor. But this area gives you to so you can see that you can change the name of the link. You can, if you want to use only the image, you can use the image. If you have special if you want to redirect or external user for that, you can external URL for that, you can do that. And that is only for the um, for the for the out of the box pages that is given to us, means the page template that is given to us. We also have the ability to create our own pages. That is where we need the liquid template. For this demonstration purposes, I want to show you that how the out of the box pages, which is given by the Dynamics customer self-service, how that can be changed. So for example, I changed the name of the company. It was out of the vanilla with the vanilla portal, it was something else, and I branded with my company's name. So let me go back here. So I can edit this header. We can have this band with this nav bar can be changed. And then we can change the sections within the home page, and we can create new pages, and anything that is anything that you, those are the pages that you want. So for example, under that home page, I want one more page, let's say contact us, which is already here, but I'm just saying that we want to contact us. We can create another navigation here, and we can say that under the home page I want a child page which is called contact us. So those will be surfaced from the CRM entity forms. So let me go back to my presentation, and I wish there is a way to go faster. The last thing I want to talk about, that now I believe that Microsoft has released a Power Apps portal. So this is called portal for Dynamics 365, but they came up with a Power App portals, and I have checked few, and I have checked the Power Apps portal, and it looks it has I am very excited, and it has and its capabilities. It has more capability than the Dynamics portals that we have. And yeah, hello. I'm already out. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.